Ah. Hello students and welcome to the lecture. I know that we are covering the historical background of the Indian Constitution, which is an important topic from the competitive examination point of view. Alright, and basically you could say that these are the topics which we have scheduled for the discussion under this series, like the introduction, thereafter the company rule, thereafter the crown rule, thereafter the interim government, and then what we have the first cabinet of free India. All right, so you could say that these are the topics basically we have scheduled for the discussion. So far we have completed the introduction. Since last few lectures we have been discussing over the company rule, and the topics we haven't started so far are the company rule, sorry, the crown rule, the interim government, and the first cabinet of free India. Okay, so you could say that this is the picture what we have created so far together. All right. So basically in this lecture, we are going to start from where we had left in the previous lecture. Like in the previous lecture, we had covered till the Charter Act of 1853. All right. So basically in this lecture, we are going to start with the Government of India Act 1858. All right. This significant act was enacted in the wake of revolt of 1857. All right. So basically there are something which we require to understand before we go further. All right. So basically the British Army introduced the Enfield rifles in the year of 1857. Let me write down again. In the year of 1857, they had introduced the Enfield rifles. All right. And basically that was the saying that the cartridge of these Enfield rifles had the fats of cows and pigs. Okay, so basically that was the saying, and this is against the religion of Hindus. All right, Hindus as well as Muslims. Got it? Because of this, what happened that in the March 1857 at Barakpur near Kolkata, Mangal Pandey, he was the sepoy in the British Army. Mangal Pandey shoot down his senior officers who were the Britishers. Alright, but what happened? That the Mangal Pandey was hanged. Alright, and this incident took place in March 1857 at Barakpur. Thereafter, that was 10th April 1857, Meerut in Uttar Pradesh. What happened? That some of the sepoys who were Indians, they denied to make use of the Enfield rifles. Alright, that's why they all were punished severely by the British administration. Okay, so in response of this, basically on 10th April 1857, the sepoy started revolting. Alright, and this incident is famously known as the revolt of 1857. Okay, and this revolt primarily had several you can say major reasons like political doctrine of lapse, like military the introduction of Enfield rifles, and the socio-economic reason. Why? Because of the trading policy or because of the merchant policy of the East India Company. Okay, and this revolt of 1857 caused a huge damage to the British administration. All right, so this is the total incident, or you can say these are the total you can say the events which took place in the revolt of 1857. All right, so after the revolt of 1857, finally what the British government did, that they introduced the Government of India Act 1858 just in the next year of revolt of 1857. All right, and this revolt is also known as the First War of Independence and the Sepoy Mutiny. Got it? And the act, known as the Act for the Good Government of India, abolished the East India Company and transferred the powers of government, territories, and revenues to the British Crown directly. All right. So in the last, you can say in the previous acts, basically what we had seen, that indirectly the British government or the British Crown were controlling the India, but their representative in India was the East India Company. But because of the policies and actions of the East India Company, the revolt of 1857 took place. Okay. In response of this, in the Act of 1858, the East India Company was abolished. All right, and all of the rights and powers regarding the government in India, regarding the territories control of India, and regarding the revenues, all the powers directly transferred to the British Crown. It means that East India Company was no longer a mediator between the British Crown and the Indian administration. All right. So what were the features of this act? It provided that India henceforth was to be governed by and in the name of Her Majesty. Her Majesty means Queen of England. Okay, so by this you could assume or you could get that the direct control of Indian territories, governments, and revenues had been transferred to the Queen of England, or you can say Her Majesty. Okay, second thing, it changed the designation of the Governor General of India to that of the Viceroy. Okay, so now the question is, what is the difference between the Governor General of India and the Viceroy of India? Okay, what is the difference between them? Okay, like we had seen, the designation was changed, so it means that the powers, the functions, and the definition would also be changed. So what's the difference? So if we try to understand the difference, then we could say that the Governor General of India is basically a political and political and military head of the Indian territory and supposed to work on directions of British government. All right. Whereas the Viceroy is representative of king or queen and deployed to work independently and only answerable to the British Crown. All right. So that is the difference. Like if we see, the Governor General of India is the political and the military head of the Indian territory and supposed to work as per the directions of the British government. But the Viceroy of India is the representative of king or queen and deployed to work independently. But these actions are answerable to the British Crown. It means British queen or queen. All right. So that is the difference. So if we look at here, then we will find that Viceroy is having higher authority in comparison with the Governor General of India, because he is not only the political and the military head who supposed to work on the directions of the British government, but he is the representative of the king or queen of England and supposed to work independently. However, he is responsible to the British Crown if anything negative happens. All right. So that is the first thing. Like Viceroy of India was appointed. All right. And as I have told you that this is the direct representative of the British Crown in India. Okay. It means that not the Queen directly came to India and start ruling. No. But she appointed the Viceroy who will represent her into the Indian government. All right. And rule as per the name of her. All right. And the first one was Lord Canning. Okay. Lord Canning was the first Viceroy of India. So here we have got three things. Okay. First, Governor General of Bengal. Second, first, Governor General of India. Third, first, Viceroy of India. So the first Governor General of Bengal was Lord Warren Hastings. First Governor General of India was Lord William Bentinck. First Viceroy of India was Lord Canning. Okay. So remember these 3 points. All right. It ended the system of double government by abolishing the Board of Control and the Court of Directors. Like the Board of Control and the Court of Directors, they had the charge of commercial functions, right? As we had discussed, and Board of Controllers had the charge of political affairs. It means that there were total 2 governments. All right, the civil functions were under the court of directors and the military and the political functions were under the court. All right, both of them got abolished. All right, thereafter it created a new office of Secretary of State for India. All right, vested with complete authority and control over Indian administration. The Secretary of State was a member of the British cabinet and was responsible ultimately to the British Parliament. All right, so here you could say that the Viceroy of India is directly responsible towards the Queen and King of England, whereas the Secretary of State of India would be responsible to British Parliament. All right, and if we talk about the composition of the council, then basically it is a 12 members body, and whosoever would be the head of the Secretary of State of India, that will be a he or she would be a member of British cabinet. All right, all right, this is the 15 members council. Okay, just correct it, not 12 but a 15. Okay, it established a 15 members council of India to assist the Secretary of State for India. All right, the council was an advisory body. The Secretary of State was made the chairman of the council. So it means that the council, which was established as a 15-member council, just had the advisory role. All right, and remember, the Secretary of State had the complete control and authority over the Indian administration as far as the British Parliament policies are concerned. All right, and Secretary of State is the ultimate chairman of the council. Got it? It constituted the Secretary of State in Council as a body corporate capable of suing and being sued in India and in England. It means that the council could take actions against anyone if the rules and regulations did not follow as per the manner. Even the council by itself could be sued if they were not following the rules and regulations as prescribed, whether in India or in England. All right. The Act of 1858 was, however, largely confined to the improvement of the administrative machinery by which the Indian government was to be supervised and controlled in England. It did not alter in any substantial way the system of government that prevailed in India. So basically what we could say, that the political structure which they had established, means which the British had established so far by introducing various acts, that political structure remained as it is, but only things were changed. You could say these were the parts of structure, like the Governor of India, or you can say the Governor General of India, replaced with the Viceroy of India. All right, thereafter the Board of Controllers and the Court of Directors abolished. All right, Indian Council becomes the council and responsible towards the Secretary of State for India. Right, so these were some changes were introduced. Okay, but however the entire political structure moresoever retain as it is. All right. And basically that was, you could say, introduced to supervise and control the Indian government in England. Because if you look at the geography, then you would find that India is territorially far away from England. All right. So whatsoever the British servants, or you can say the British officers, doing in India, that must be controlled by the England. All right. So because of these provisions, basically the 1858 Act was introduced, and now that was the beginning of Crown rule. All right. So remember, from 1773 till 1858, that was a company rule. It means that the company was in the power. But because of the revolt of 1858, the British Parliament as well as the British royals lost their confidence in company's administration. Okay, and there was a, you can say, another reason as well, and that was a Lord Dalhousie. Lord Dalhousie. His name you have heard many times in your historical books and all. All right, he was the last Governor General of India in proper sense. Proper sense means that he was the last Governor General of India who had the powers. All right, and basically he submitted his report, which is known as the Dalhousie's report. All right, in this report, he made mentions about the ill policies of the company, and he also highlighted the potential harms which could be done to the British interest if the company's role is not to be governed. It means that basically he highlighted the mismanagement and policy loopholes of the East India Company. All right, and as we know, in 1857, or you can say in revolt of 1857, these mismanagement and policy loopholes resulted in a negative turn for the British interest. Okay, that's why the company's rule was abolished, and the company was abolished by itself. All right, and the British Crown assumed the direct control over the Indian territories. Got it? After the 1858, another important act was Indian Councils Act 1861. All right. After the Great Revolt of 1857, the British government felt the necessity of seeking the cooperation of Indians in the administration of their country. In pursuance of this policy of association, three acts were enacted by the British Parliament in 1861, 1892, and 1909. The Indian Council Act of 1861 is an important landmark in the constitutional and the political history of India. So basically, when I had told you about the revolt of 1857, all right, so there is three things I had mentioned about. Okay, like first is the political cause, second is the military cause. Third is the socio-economic cause. All right. So basically, if we go down in all these causes, then what we will find that the major reason behind the ill functioning of all these causes was exclusion of Indians. All right, like as we had seen when in the Act of 1833, or you can say when the Charter Act of 1833 was introduced in India, then there was a provision for Indian inclusion, right? Okay, and as we know that this Indian inclusion provision was opposed by the Court of Directors. All right, and the Court of Directors is the part of East India Company. All right, so ultimately we could say that the East India Company had its inclination towards the exclusion of Indians. All right, and because of this, these three main causes took place, like the political cause, military cause, socio-economic cause. Political cause oftenly indicates towards the lapse, doctrine lapse, or you can say doctrine of lapse. Okay, so what do you mean by doctrine of lapse? So basically, as per the doctrine of lapse, that was introduction, that if any king or queen do not having their natural heir and the heir is adopted, or someone outside the bloodline of king and queen, that the new heir will not be recognized by the British government and the entire kingdom will be handed over to the British government. All right, and by virtue of this, they had acquired several kingdoms like Satara, Jamshedpur and Jaitapur. All right, sorry, Sambalpur and Jaitapur. All right, Nagpur, Kanpur, and other areas like Jhansi also. All right, so the first is the doctrine of lapse. Second is the military cause, Enfield rifles, and the socio-economic cause, basically the trading policies and the merchant policies designed by the East India Company. Why? Because in these policies they had only focused on the profit maximization for the traders of the East India Company. Okay, so these policies and these causes were highly centric as per the exclusion of Indians. So because of this, basically what happens that the Indians felt, you can say, deprivation from the British side, and they revolted against the British. So when the British, after abolishing the India, were thinking for the future, the main aim was seeking the cooperation of Indians in the administration of their country. They had understood that without the local, or you can say without the native cooperations, they won't be able to run this country for a long. Because of this, they had formulated the several laws like in 1861, in 1892, in 1909. All right. So this is the entire scenario. So students, basically in this lecture we have covered it here, like we have covered the 1858 rule. The Indian Council Act of 1861 we will cover in the next lecture. Till then, I want you all to just revise the facts and figures we have discussed in this lecture, okay, so that mentally ready for the next lecture. With this note, let's end this lecture, and what do we say? We say thank you.